Bill Doolin established himself as the most notorious outlaw in Oklahoma Territory. He began with the Dalton Gang and survived the Coffeyville shootout in 1892. A cabinet card from 1896 produced by W.B. Doherty and Guthrie records his body riddled with buckshot, after action by U.S. Deputy Marshal Heck Thomas. At age 18, John Wesley Hardin recorded in his album The End of a Cattle Drive along the Chisholm Trail to Abilene, Kansas, 1871. The route had deaths. During the march, he killed 4 Mexicans, according to reports of the time. In Abilene, at the American House Hotel, he shot a man in the neighboring room, possibly for snoring. By the time he died in 1895, he had between 27 and 42 victims. An albumin photograph records Pinkerton detectives in pursuit of the Wild Bunch Gang, 1900. On the left, Charlie Siringo, former cowboy in Texas and New Mexico, joined the agency in 1886 and published A Cowboy Detective in 1912. On the back, he noted his partner on the right, William B. Sayers, concealed in the book as W.O. Sales. Amid distrust of law and courts, the image records the remnants. In front, deputies Heck Thomas of Guthrie and Morris Robacker of Pawhuska, the latter also chief of the Osage Police. Behind them, Osage scouts Spotted Dog Eater and Howling Wolf. In the last row, Clerk John H. Havighorst of Pawnee and Deputy Attorney General Roy Hoffman. On a cabinet card around 1895 appears Roy Bean, who proclaimed himself Law of the West of the Pecos. As Justice of the Peace in Langtry, Texas, he held hearings in the Jersey Lily Saloon, setting fines and summary sentences based on state laws and his interpretation. His activity illustrates informal forms of frontier justice in the late 19th century. On November 9, 1867, the New York Times, in a report, described the Kiowa chief Satanta as endowed with cunning and diplomacy, as well as audacity and cruelty. In 1871, after the attack on Henry Warren's caravan at Salt Creek in northern Texas, the Warren Wagon train raid, Satanta, Big Tree, and Satank became the first natives tried in the U.S. in Jacksboro. In 1884, photographer A. Frank Randall made the first photographic records of Geronimo, Chiricahua healer and leader, at the San Carlos Reservation in Arizona Territory. Among the images, Geronimo kneeling, holding a Springfield 1873 carbine, stands out. The session was part of Randall's series and consolidated his public image. In March 1886, photographer C.S. Fly of Tombstone, Arizona, accompanied General George Crook to the Mexican border to negotiate the surrender of Geronimo and his Chiricahua Apache group. In Canon de los Embudos, he made the only known photos during the war, including this one with men, women, and children. Behind them, mounted men. The last image of George Armstrong Custer, a cabinet card, was taken by William R. Howell in New York in April 1876. 2 months later, Custer would fall with part of the 7th Cavalry of the U.S. Army at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Attentive to his own image, he posed for more than 150 portraits. This one is part of his last session. Frank Harry Leslie. McCubbin, strict about provenance, admits that the photo has no direct link confirming it to be Buckskin Frank. The identification is based on an authenticated photo. Buckskin Frank gained fame by killing Billy Claiborne, survivor of the OK Corral shootout in 1882, at the Oriental Saloon in Tombstone, Arizona Territory. McCubbin recorded in his first historical photograph the Sheriff of Lincoln County, Pat Garrett, known for killing Billy the Kid on July 14, 1881. The portrait was taken by James N. Furlow in Las Vegas around 1880, after Garrett captured the gunman in Stinking Springs, then New Mexico Territory, on December 23, 1880. Dancer and European celebrity Lola Montez arrived in California in 1853 and spread the famous tarantula dance in the saloons of the Gold Rush. In the number, with strong theatrical appeal, she shook her dress to expel imaginary spiders, lifting her petticoats. The gesture, half theatrical, half burlesque, guaranteed immediate fame and fueled controversies. At age 20, John Henry Holliday completed his degree at the Pennsylvania College of Dental Surgery. The carte de visite portrait by O.B. Morat, 1872, is one of the rare adult images of the future Doc Holliday, a gunman notorious for the OK Corral confrontation in Tombstone. The piece remained in the family, preserved by his cousin Mattie for decades. Cattle rustlers of New Mexico Territory. This cabinet card photograph, circa 1880, identifies the subjects only as horse thieves of New Mexico. Researchers suspect that the standing man is John Kinney, leader of a gang dedicated to horse and cattle theft in the territory, active in the 1870s and 1880s. The Texas Rangers, a police force with state reach and national projection, date back to the Republic of Texas, before annexation to the U.S. In 1874, the Frontier Battalion was formed, with 6 companies. Company F, recorded on a cabinet card around 1885, exemplifies the organization and the patrol role on frontiers and routes. James Butler Wild Bill Hickok is considered the first great gunfighter of the West. He gained fame in the 1865 face-to-face duel in Springfield, Missouri, against Dave Tutt, a confrontation that shaped the model for gunfights later filmed. In that same year, he appears in a carte de visite by Charles Schulten, carrying Colt Navy revolvers in crossdraw. The 1887 photograph by photographer John C.H. Grable includes in the copyright record the identification of the mounted cowboy as Fred Pierce, a famous cowboy of Wyoming. However, searches in the 1880 and 1890 censuses in the press of the time and in the Wyoming Territory Brand Book have not located this character so far. Executing a warrant against horse thief Andy Cooper in Holbrook, Arizona Territory, Apache County Sheriff Commodore Perry Owens opened fire when resisted, killing Cooper and brothers Samuel and John Blevins and wounding another Blevins. Months later, in 1888, Emma Albright photographed him in Albuquerque, New Mexico Territory. Many, when searching for a name of the Old West, recall Wyatt Earp, in part because of Bat Masterson. A former Army scout, sheriff, and Wyatt's partner, he told Theodore Roosevelt that only Earp could narrate the real West. Aide Stuart Lake heard this, sought him out, and in 1931 published a fictional biography. Part of the accounts attributed to Wyatt were Masterson's own experiences. Mixed-race frontiersman. The identity of the portrayed man, recorded around 1850, remains undetermined. The daguerreotype, a rare piece, presents a man of mixed ancestry, possibly Metis, in work clothing, carrying a knife and an axe, signs of participation in the frontier economy in a zone of territorial contact and self-defense. Among the first records of a fur trapper, this daguerreotype of James P. Beckwourth, taken in 1850, was published in his biography released in 1856. Born in Virginia in 1778, the son of an enslaved mother and an Irish overseer, he traveled the West from 1824 until his death in 1866, working in the fur trade and on frontier routes. Rare image of a buffalo hunter. Although the slaughter was common in the Old West in the United States, almost no visual records of the hunters themselves remain. This cabinet card, dated around 1880, portrays a man posing with a Sharps rifle, typical equipment of the time, in the Payne and Stockdorf studio, Leadville, Colorado. Capture of the Northfield robbers. On September 7, 1876, the James Younger gang failed in its attempt to rob the Bank of Northfield, Minnesota, with members captured. The carte de visite, made by Ira E. Sumner, typical of portraits of prisoners and the dead, is said to have circulated by the thousands. Today, few copies survive in public and private collections. At the end of the 1870s, Samantha Fallon managed the San Jose House Hotel and a millinery shop in Tombstone, then Arizona Territory. A cabinet card made by C.S. Fly around 1879 records her image. pointed out as the partner of Ed Schieffelin. She ended up marrying Zachary Taylor on December 14, 1880. In March 1886, during the negotiations between General George Crook and Geronimo in Canon de los Embudos, Sonora, photographer C.S. Fly recorded an Apache wearing a three-piece suit. Fly or his wife identified him as Apache Kid, an identification supported by William Sparks. Historian Granville Stewart, however, contested, "It is not the Kid.